it's earth-shattering, but it's a lot of information or whatever. So let's just start with the fall's kind of statistic state of the market. About what I had been prepping you for since March is about what I think is happening. I was fairly accurate in my prediction that the number of sales was up in August. For the first time in 12 months, the number of sales above 500,000 was up. The state of the market and the headlines were a little more positive than they had been over the past. And you can see both the MLS press release was a little more positive, and what the Chronicle and HBJ picked up was a little more positive. So I think there's a lot that we could take from that. I think it's going to be a trend that we're going to be seeing. The statistics themselves, we're going to in a second. You can kind of see overall the dollar volume was up, and we were up as a percentage over 11%. So we're selling more houses dollar per volume than we did in 2015, which is still the benchmark year. Now remember, July 2015 is the single busiest month in the history of the Houston Association of Realtors and MLS or whatever. So now we're still comparing, the number of closed sales was up, the dollar volume was up, although we were down for a little bit in the beginning of the year. The year-to-date stuff is fine, the median price is up. All single-family indicators were positive in August of 2016. And I do like that they're breaking it out. If we break out, for the first time, existing home sales had been up for a while, but new construction had been down. And so you'll see that the number of single-family homes was equal this month. For the first time, new construction is finally making a little bit of a rebound. A lot of that is predominantly just tied to supply and demand, and the fact that people held on so long at the high price, they were forced to adjust their price down to the economic reality of what it takes in order to sell them. So I think it was a little more competitive. As you can tell, and as we've been talking about consistently, townhouse market is not in as good a shape as perhaps the single-family housing market. I think we still see an oversaturation of townhouses and condominiums. I think we see those townhouses and condominiums in less desirable locations. It's just the sheer fact those builders bought land at a high in marginal locations, and they're trying to sell a unit in too expensive an area, and the area did not continue to evolve. When the momentum was going, you can't go from a $300,000 market and make it a $600,000 market in an 18-month time span. And I think you're seeing the retraction of that. It would have worked if we continued to infill with more and more and more and more townhouses. Then there's a sense of security, but there's no sense of security. You want to be the most expensive townhouse. Plus, there's just the sheer number of townhouses. I continue to look at and go and monitor the number of townhouses that are not yet on the MLS. So if I'm a townhouse developer in Montrose or in Midtown or in the East Side, and I've got 12 units, I still only have 2 on the MLS. There's the looming inventory of the townhouses that I still think it's very better. If you are in a good location, you're priced right. We're selling a fair number of townhouses, so it's not like we're not selling any of them. But I think the overall buyer is a little more nervous in that market. Same thing basically is happening with land. We're not selling as much land. There's not as many buyers for that land. I have definitely seen in the last 3 months the number of custom buyers getting back into the market. It starts with the dialogue. Very few custom people want to compete with a builder for land. They want to wait till the slow down. They have more choices. They're not in that same bidding war. So I'm seeing across the city more people willing to get back. If they'll buy some land and build a custom house, it'll keep the builder afloat during the lean times or whatever. And so we're seeing those things happening probably off market. Yes, Mark?
Are the people who are buying land buying it from builders who already have the lots? Or
the problem with those builders is they overpaid for that land, and you can't resell it. So they're trying to sell their $80 oil for $80 when we're trading at $44. So you're seeing either the new reality of what that land is worth. So it's usually new land coming on the market. It's been some we've definitely seen in our market where a builder bought a lot and was going to go build a $2 million house. Now he's willing to go do a custom house that's really back down at 1.5 million, and he's going to take a loss on the land and make it back up, either to get equal or ahead under the construction or whatever. So they're willing to enter their land in at what is today's market rate, which might be 20% less than what they paid for it. So definitely seeing a little more of that into the marketplace. Overall, I thought the headline was positive. Go to the little summary of the 3-year sort of deal, especially in single family houses, just kind of go down. I don't know that we need to dwell on any of this because I think we've dwelled on it a fair amount, and I'll pick back up. Keep going. All right, keep going. So when I am in single family houses and I'm looking at this August versus the previous August. So you see we sell 79 houses this month and 73 the year before. But when I start looking at the numbers for September and October and November and December, especially compared to the previous November or something, so we were down last November, we were down last October pretty significantly, we were down in September. So I think when we start to go to compare to those numbers, we're going to go compare to what was 2012, 13, 14, before the peak again. And so I think we have a fairly good opportunity because the overall state of the economy, the overall state of Houston, Texas is quite positive. The number of people moving into the city is still greater. That's the number I think we ought to focus on for a while. The jobs market is okay, not the greatest. We've lost 200,000 oil and gas jobs. We've replaced those jobs with something else. They may not have paid quite as much. They may not get the same $200,000 bonus that they used to, but there is employment in Houston, Texas, and there's still a greater, every month, more people move to Houston, Texas. Okay? So long as more people, if we're adding 15,000 new electric meters a month, this is a new meter getting started, then that's telling me that we have more people buying electricity today than we did last month, right? That's really what I'm focusing on at the moment. That will tell me how are we able to absorb some of the losses through the oil and gas. If oil and gas, which I consider to be stable, I don't think it's highly profitable, and I don't think it's highly speculative at the moment, but as long as oil doesn't drop to 26, if it hovers around 40, in our world, it will do us more harm if we go to 60 and then drop back down to 40. It will be worse. It will cause a pause again. So I think we're going to be moderately stable in oil prices. There's some good news and there's some bad news. And it seems to me like it's going to kind of keep itself in check. But I think the overall economic climate, the national economic climate, despite what you read into the world, it's still the greatest amount of wealth that we've ever had, the least amount of unemployment out there in the nation. So, I mean, there's a lot of very positive indicators going on that at least the economy is headed in the right direction. I think we're going to see some interest rate movement at some point. What will happen is, I think mortgage rates have already adjusted for the Fed to adjust the rate. I doubt they do anything today. I don't know if they've announced it already, but they're going to raise the rates, which will cause the stock market to drop, which will cause the bond market to spike a little, which will cause some instant deal for a week or two. But I think we need to be realistic. It will recover relatively quickly or whatever. There's been free money going on for quite a while, and I think you're going to see a movement for higher interest rates. But I don't think for the mortgage rate, I don't see any significant increase, certainly this year, and even in 2017. I mean, we need to be thinking 4 is still a very good number, not 3.625. 4 and 4.5 is a pretty good damn interest rate if we landed somewhere at the end of 2017 in those numbers. But overall, I think what we were talking about in the spring is going to continue to happen. The number of sales, it's still a very competitive market. You have to be priced right. It's still going to take a little bit longer to sell, but the overall optimism is greater and will continue to improve, I believe, through the end of 2016. And then you'll start seeing those headlines, same thing. It'll start negative. Wasn't as bad as it was supposed to be. We didn't fall off the end of the earth. And then when they go and evaluate it, overall, it will be a relatively solid year. A tough beginning of the year, okay in the middle, a little stronger at the end. Just my opinions, but I've been pretty good at tracking it, I think. We can look, if you want to look at area 9 and 16 and 17 for those for just a moment. I don't want to spend too much time here unless there are specific questions or whatever. I think you're going to see more inventory. I think as we talked about, it's not a great time to list it. You can sell, if you only have 5 for sale, you can only sell 5. So you can sell more if there's 15 for sale. You may only sell 7, but you can sell more if there's more for sale. So you're going to see some rising inventory here at the end of September and the beginning of October, which will allow for greater sales. Plenty of us have buyers and there's nothing to sell them, right? We've exhausted what inventory there is. And no one wanted to list a house when it's a bad time to list a house. So you look at the psychology of the listing side, it will. So I have the same thing. I have a classic $1.6 million seller and buyer in Westview, and it's the same thing. We have exhausted every house in Westview that they're possibly wanting to look at. So I'm telling you, there will be more inventory in October, which is a great opportunity to buy. But then we have to worry about, can I sell more in October? Well, yes, I think there'll be more buyers in October also. So it's a pretty good time to list your house when there's a pretty good time to buy a house there. I think we'll see a balance there, not the pendulum shifting one, too far one way or the other. So I still think the inventory will kick up here in October, and I think the number of buyers. A lot of people, again, when we start a decline in last August, you sell your house at a high, you go to some rental unit. If I were needing a place to go invest in lead generation, it would be in the people that rented a house last April, May, June, July, and August. I would go to MLS, I would pull up Area 9, I would see what rented in July of 2015, I'd send those people a letter and say, you thinking about getting back into the market now that it's, I think I don't do a lot of mail outs, but before I did a blanket one, that's probably where I would go and I would focus. If I wanted to focus on Montrose or Westview or Pearland, I would kind of do the same thing. Those people are still renting, they're month to month, their rent's probably inching up a little bit, and they're probably willing to get back into the purchase market better than they were before. So if we're in Area 9, number of sales picked up a little bit. You can see statistically about the same. The average price and median price in my world virtually the same. There was no great adjustment. I think what we were talking about the same thing. Some people have had to come down to an economic reality of what their house is worth. We were talking about 17 Columbia the other day. I went on that listing appointment. I knew that man. He bought it 2014? Who's signing? Whatever. He went on the list, we wanted to list it. I told him he bought it at a high. I didn't think he could get what it is that he paid for it. Of course, he immediately did not like that answer, and so listed with John Daugherty at some $200,000 number higher. $1,435,000. And it just closed, which was $5,000 less than what he paid for it last year, or whatever, which is what I told him. But of course, I was bitterly honest. I should have just lied like the other John Daugherty people, but that's not ethical, and I don't do that sort of thing. But the reality of it is, no one, if you bought something in 2014 or 15, very few people want to give you more money than what you paid. The reality is what it was. He could have sat on it for 2 years or just taken that number. He took that number, which was 5,000 less than what he paid. 15,000 less than what he paid.
$1,335,000. He paid $1,350,000.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just, I think that's the truth, showing what's going on. It causes some of the reality. We're not going to get some of those prices that people think. If they don't sell now, they don't sell October, November, they're not going to sell again until March, April. So you have to weigh the carrying cost of $10,000 a month. Is it worth it or not? And many of those people can't move on with the rest of their life. So you take your $15,000 loss here because you can make it up on the next house, but it's gonna take too long to make it up on this one. And if you wait 5 months to make 15 more thousand, but what you want costs 30 more thousand, you cost yourself really the $15,000 later. And if you're paying interest on it and the interest rate goes up by a quarter point, I mean, you really have to look at the bigger picture of it. And these people that get hung up on $5,000 and $10,000 probably need to take a new reality check. Go to 16 and 17. See, I didn't even glance at all this too much. 16, same thing. I mean, we're seeing the same trend. Number of sales went up. Prices a little more in adjustment, but probably back to a little reality. They were a little high this month abnormally or whatever. I don't think I could read too much into that. It's just what's selling. But what I'm saying is true. What is selling is less expensive there than what was selling before. And a lot of this is the same thing. The people that were holding on can't hold on as long, any longer. So prices were a little more in check, but probably still real. They're not artificially low. They're just probably real. 17, same thing. Number of sales went up. Prices were statistically about the same as where they should be. These numbers fluctuate in that month to month. I don't think you can read 1 month into anything, but it's kind of in the range of where it is that we're talking. That's really what I had to say about statistics today. We'll have a big follow-up, I think, a little bit later. I'll delve into it more. I just didn't really want to do that today. Just want to say, basically, the headline is kind of where we thought it was going to go. I think the impressions were from September is ending. I mean, I still think the same thing. The world likes the first cool front. It goes back to school. We watch the Texans. We're trying to decide, like, open houses pick up if there's 4 losses in a row, but when they win, people tend to hang out and watch the Texans a little bit more. So the longer they win, the slower your open houses are going to be. But they tend to get better in the fall also. So, I mean, hang in there. I think you'll see some way. The first cool front really brings people up.
Tomorrow.
Fall's tomorrow, perfect. Any questions about sales or statistics? Okay, all righty. Moving quite on there, we are gearing up for a number of things for the fall. And we keep trying to think from the brokerage service side to the agent, what is it that we can do to help you? And we're going to be spending most of October talking about that. So we are putting out later today a survey. It's a survey for agents at Boulevard Realty. This is a total anonymous survey. I will get the results, but I will not know if it's Bob or Brenda that sent them to us or whatever. We think we know what Boulevard Realty does pretty well. Okay? We are pretty ethical. I don't think people question me about when they ask me a question, we err on the side of ethics. We are pretty good, I believe, for a firm our size, of branding ourselves very well to the realtor community. I have great respect at HAR, with Bob Hill and Mario, with Dana and with Sean and any of those sort of people. I make an effort to make sure that we have good relations with them. I make an effort to make sure we have good relations with the other brokers and the owners in our industry. And then the agents, we're branding to the agents. The advantage is, if Becky makes an offer on a house on Harvard to a Martha Turner agent, and if Interno and Champions and Energy Realty make the same offer, and they may offer $5,000 more than Becky's client, I want that agent on the other side at Martha Turner, or John Daugherty, or Heritage to believe that theoretically Becky is better trained than the Interno, that her broker has taken responsibility for her success, is going to shepherd her through and help her. And I believe that we're relatively successful of doing that, especially inside the 610 loop. I could probably do a better job of branding to the Cinco Ranch agents and the Cypress agents and the Fairland agents, but there's only so much that we can do without large agent participation there. So we do I think, a very good job of support staff when people ask for help. I mean, they have to ask for help and they have to take the help, but if they don't, there's not much to do. The survey, which is pretty lengthy, is designed to figure out what we don't do particularly well for you. So my first take of it was, I thought, damn, I think this is pretty negative. And I told Aaron I thought it was a little negative. He created, because he has a different perspective than I am. I'm defensive about what it is. If you're not taking me up on my marketing, then damn it, you can't criticize the marketing department. But in fact, you can criticize the marketing department, because we really want to know what you think. As we look into changes that we're going to put into place for 2017, I really want to know what you think. So this survey is going to go to you. We will know if they do it or not, so that we can reach back out to the people. No, we're going to have
a count that we're at 50% or
okay,
60%.
that's all we really know.
Totally
we don't have
confident.
any way of knowing who does it or not. Okay? So hopefully it's not just people that never come to a meeting. But yeah, I think for us to get a good feel, we need a large participation. So we're going to continue to encourage the large number of people to go in and fill this out. It will take you, it took me quite a while. I mean, I think it's going to take 10 minutes to go fill it out. It's not 3 questions. So let's just kind of go over a couple. I'm not going to dwell on any of this. But this survey will be going out later today.
Yep.
So, are you satisfied? Some of this is grouped to your deal. Are you satisfied with your production and what is it that you're doing in order to achieve your level of success or something? So there's a whole little section you can check, the things that you do. And a lot of this is, the first little section is kind of about you. To give us a feel, if you're only working 2 hours a week.
Question,
Yeah.
Can they only check one in each of these?
Well,
It
sometimes you
depends.
can check multiple.
Sometimes you can check more, sometimes it's multiple choice. Yeah.
So there's a section about you. We just go on from that. That
Mhm.
doesn't matter as much. But overall, there's stuff about, you can pick one. On the training, how well do you feel you're trained in the fundamentals, and it's kind of ranking your system? What would you like to see more training in? We talk about IT. I'm not going to dwell on all this, but it's a total agent survey designed to provide us some information of what else that we could do better, and what's an evaluation of what we're doing well and what we're doing poorly or whatever. We want to thoroughly encourage you to fill this out so that we can utilize it better to help you. So,
Yep.
Anything else I need to say about the survey?
Nope.
Coming live, it's live now. How do they get to it?
We'll email it out later today.
Okay, perfect.
Is there an area, like, if you wanted to?
There's
add
plenty of
some
comments at the
comments?
bottom. There's plenty we can, we're very specific about some of these questions, but yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for you to fill out your own comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throughout the deal. Okay. With that, so that's all about the survey. I did want to mention that I think that we are meeting more as a staff, and we want to try and see if we can't not have the same level of duplication of services. It is getting somewhat frustrated in our world when you ask Rhonda the question, and then you ask Brandon the same question, and then you immediately come and ask me the exact same question, or you simultaneously ask us the question. So when in doubt, I think if you would try and give the one an opportunity to respond, and then we'll see where we need to go from there. So I just wanted to make that comment. And my biggest frustration with this building is the lack of parking. And we have been, the whole building and the majority of the firm is designed for agent and agent production. That's what we're here for. We don't need to answer the damn phones if it weren't for agents. When phones aren't ringing, we don't need a receptionist. So the receptionist ought to want the phone to ring a lot. But I've asked all the non-support staff to park across the way over there, to leave plenty of room in the parking lot for the agents and your clients. We need to have room for your clients when they come to park over here. So Selena and marketing and Arturo and myself, we're all going to be parking over there, allowing for more deal. I will be honest with you. I used to be in the restaurant business, and I used to have a bunch of different restaurants. I worked for other people before I worked for myself. And when times were slow, we took all the employees and we parked the cars at the front of the restaurant so that it looked busy, so that people go where there's activity, whatever. I picked up Katie from the airport last night. We were looking at a restaurant. As I drive down Broadmoor, I look at Don Carlos restaurant. I really want Mexican food. They're not a damn car in the parking lot. Do you think we're going to go eat there? They're telling me that nobody likes it there, right? So when I drive around on the weekends and I go to Berkshire Hathaway and I go to Cold Banker and I go to Green King and I don't see any cars, it's telling me they're slow as hell on Sunday. I don't even know that they have a receptionist working there. So I like to see a large number of cars in the parking lot, psychologically. I like it. So I don't want, if I route back over some people, I want people on, especially on Saturdays and Sundays, to see activity in the parking lot in cars, so it's not, but I don't want your client to drive up on Saturday at 1 o'clock and not have the ability to park and have to drive around the whole block. That's what I don't want in 99-degree weather, your client to have to suffer. So that was the primary reason about that. Back to agents and what you're doing. So we are launching again today this deal. It's Boulevard's redesign. It's a design resource. This is Maria's project to provide information to you and to your clients. And you can get to this through our website, or you can just, log on to Boulevard Realty Redesign. Did I say that right?
yourblbd.com/redesign.
Is that the only way to get there? But if you just Google Boulevard Realty Redesign,
Sure.
you get it?
Yeah.
You can go there from the Your Boulevard site.
Yeah, and you can come directly from our site. This deal is designed to be updated on a very regular basis. You're going to get new content on a very regular basis. It's a couple of things. We're just talking about design and design services in general. We're talking about trend. It's not only appropriate if I come up and tell you you've got to paint your black kitchen white. We have to be able to show you so you can show your clients, whatever. So if you're getting a listing, we want you to kind of take this web portion and go and show people the trends, the simplicity or whatever it is that is going on. Mixing brushed brass with black, with polished chrome, doing some different things. So it's also a way for us to highlight our current listing. So we've broken down rooms. Go back to, you got ahead of me over here. In the main focus again, here's just kind of the home page, and you can explore by room. So you can take an interior and you can go and look at just bathrooms or just backyards or just living rooms or kitchens, however you want to look at it. This is by room. You can go look at here. These are highlighting some of the features of houses that we have on the market. So we're taking some design elements of our listing, so it allows us to showcase one of yours. If you have a listing with an amazing design detail, we want to share that detail so that it gets out into the world a little bit more. So it could be, it's less about decoration than it is the house, although I think they're tied in together, but it's predominantly about simplicity or colors or texture or edge details, or, we're talking about air conditioning. We're trying to highlight some trends along the way. If you have a house that's 10 or 20 years old, you might need to reevaluate. You're working with a builder, you're working with a buyer. So this is our listings. What else are these other things? These are just talking about redesign and kind of Maria and her ability to go and help you. We want to be known as people who understand current design trends, from colors to materials to those sort of things. So keep on going. Let's go back up.
That's really it.
That's really it. This gets on back to the website.
Yeah.
This gets on back to our blog about the city. Okay. So this is now up and going.
Up and going, yeah.
Up and going as of today.
Yeah, so we'll send you out at noon today. Swamp Lot's announcing it, so we'll send you out a link to that. That way it doesn't look like it's just you saying, hey, check out my blog. It looks like somebody else is saying it. And then we have this little insert that we'll put into the listing packets.
Here it is.
Yeah, that's going to say Aspen Boulevard.
We're adding this into the listing packet. It's just kind of design services for a buyer. If you're buying something with King Fuchsia Formica and we need to figure out how we do it, we have to. I'm paying for Maria and Frank to go out here and help agents, help you get, sell a house and turn it into their dream house, or take a listing and get it ready to go on the market, or get you out of the option period, or get you the estimates that you need in order to make a decision. Very few other real estate firms offer this service both to their agents and to their clients. We want to make sure that you're fully utilizing their expertise. We've now been at it for quite a few years. I think we've got it better organized about how we can go out and help you. So we want to better promote that opportunity. Okay? So along with that, when we're looking at our listing side, as an agent, what are we doing differently as a listing agent? What are we doing well or not so well compared to Ashton and Martha Turner, or Amanda Anhorn and Greenwood King? So I think we're going to hit you in October with some rethinking our thoughts on how to utilize the MLS, how to utilize information, how to better utilize flyers and those sort of things. We are we were pretty good about putting a house on the MLS and answering their questions and knowing the comps and knowing the neighborhood and understanding the contract. That's not our problem. We do that better than most people. And we're not willing to lose that. But I think we can differentiate ourselves and our listings compared to Martha Turner's listings. I look at the trend. And so here's an idea. We haven't perfected this. But if I look at magazines, I look at the MLS and the photos. I look how they've evolved, the professional photos. I look how the staging has evolved. Certainly, even in the last 2 years, we're definitely into that look. And then I go look at Pinterest and Houzz and Instagram and all this sort of look. It is almost like people don't believe the internet or the photos anymore. They're too doctored. We all look too pretty. The houses almost look too pretty, right? There's almost a fakeness going on. The Billy Reed Shindig was almost about this. You can create any sort of image of fashion with a photo, but I mean, if we're not in the Arctic or we're not in the Louvre, it's hard for us to imagine that we're going to look the same way as that model does. And I think sometimes the photos have done a great job of kind of piquing someone's interest, but I don't know that we've turned it into a sale necessarily. So we want to rethink how we use photos to promote a house. And we're going to do it on mine, so I'm going to test it and see how it works on. I want to stop taking a picture of a room, and I want to retake a picture of how you utilize a room. I want more going on. So in the kitchen, I want the husband and wife in there, one sitting at the island and one cooking or serving a bottle of wine.
You have prettier clients than
Well, we haven't thought about this.
We think we're gonna get
Don't think we haven't thought about this and hiring models and using them on Tuesday to route to house to house to house. I would almost theoretically pay them for a while, and we would take these 4 people and we would route them to 12 different listings. But I want to show the backyard. I want to quit taking the picture of the backyard, and I want the fire pit lit and 19 people in the backyard to prove that there's room for a party. I want to show the lifestyle more than the room. I'm not saying we're never going to show the room. I want to show the dog on the front porch. I want to show the kids in their bedroom. I want to see the people in the family room with the Texan game on the TV. I want to rethink how we're selling the house because we're selling the lifestyle. I want to show people how to utilize the room. Don't quit telling them the living room's 12 by 12. Show them that 8 people can sit there. Or show them how the Christmas tree fits. Or show them how you're going to use the dining room for 12 people or 2 people. Or do this dining room at night with the candles lit and 2 people sitting there for their anniversary dinner. We're going to try this thinking out. Instead of having just the same photo of Martha Turner and Dawn Daugherty, we're going to do interaction. Yes, Ann?
I was just gonna say that is the owner.
This is the owner of your listing here. Okay. This is an example of what we're talking about. This is in Ann's house. We had this conversation with them, and we're showing how they're utilizing their balcony and what their view is for this homeowner. I want somebody else to want this same experience here. What else did we do? We did some with wine.
Yeah.
This is the homeowner in this
We
instance.
tried to get I wanted to get like a paddleboard to go out on the lake, but I wasn't able to rent one, so I'm gonna bring.
We're just going to explore this, rethinking how we, instead of just taking the same photos, if I take your Morrison listing, and Martha Turner took pictures, John Daugherty took pictures, Boulevard Realty took pictures, what would be the difference of those photos? And how can we get out of just taking the standard photo? I don't want them to look like we set up for the magazine, all fake. I almost want to show them how to use the room. And then I want to tie with it a few of these little videos. On the video, you click on there, and if the homeowner sitting in her kitchen saying, I bought this house because of the kitchen. I love to come home after work and cook dinner for my husband and sit in this environment and see how the light shines in through this window. And if it's that homeowner doing that, Martha Turner just has a picture of the stupid kitchen, I think we're going to be able to differentiate ourselves, okay? We're going to test this, rethink how the photos work. And it's going to be just kind of a trend, and it's just kind of the start of some ideas that I have. If we had to start all over again and not copy what we've been doing, what else would we do in its place? So along with that deal, like I said, we're going to spend October explaining kind of how we think this might work. We're testing out some of that. I want you to be thinking of your listing the same thing. I need for you to, if you're doing one thing that Martha Turner, John Daugherty, and Greenwood King aren't doing, it's provide, if I could get you to do one thing, it would be to provide better feedback. It would truly be on a weekly basis to have a thorough conversation with your friend that you're getting to sell the house for, okay? You've got to explain a little bit more. You can't just send them the market insight. You can't just send them the comps. You've got to talk about the competition. You've got to talk about what else we could be doing. You've got to talk about the state of the market. You're going to have to talk to them and share with them a little bit more. We're going to perfect a little way for you to go and do that. PAR makes it simplistic. They're providing this information. We're inundating people with information they do not know how to digest. They do not know what it means. They do not know how to read it. They barely know how to open it up. And just because we send them a market insight or we send them a summary of the open house, I don't think that that's separating us from the pack. I think there's another way to do it. So we're hoping that you're sending some feedback and that you're actually talking to your listings on a regular basis. I would schedule a date night with them. I would schedule a time to revisit. I mean, I think we've got to say, to keep these listings, if your listing was up every week, what would you go and do? We have the privilege of listing these houses. And so we need to think of it that way and say, what am I doing to nurture my relationship with this individual who's entrusted me with this huge opportunity to market and sell their home? And we're going to be talking about feedback and ways to provide feedback and rethinking how feedback works. If you have a listing, and we're doing MLS and photographs and an open house and some flyers and check. So is Interno and so is Energy Realty. You didn't do anything. Maybe we do it a little bit better, but we didn't do anything that they didn't do. So what else are we doing? And if you're not willing, I want you to think about this. We're just talking about the listing side at the moment. If you have a listing, I need for you to be able to come and talk to me or Aaron or Rhonda and tell us, if you had $500, what is the best way that you could spend $500 outside of what we're already doing? It's not produce more flyers or have an open house. That's not what I'm talking about. But for $500, what is it that could we have a wine tasting at their house? Could we have a, have a charity event, do something for dogs, do something for children, have a jewelry show? Would we do a different type of mail out? What would you do with $500? Would you go get Zillow for a month for $350 a month or something? I'm just trying to think. You've got to be able to tell me if you had $500, and then you have to be willing to go spend $500. I think if you're not willing to spend $500 when they're entrusting us with $10,000 or $12,000, we're not thinking about it right. Yes?
I mean, an idea is just like talk to the neighbors and say, what's the greatest thing about living in this neighborhood?
Why not invite all the neighbors to your open house and have them over there and see if they can't
I do
sit there
every
with
single
you?
time.
I mean, and rethink when we're having the open houses. I mean, I think people are busier on these Sundays and with the games, and so maybe we should do them more on, later. Maybe they're from 6 to 8 on Sunday, or maybe they're from 5 to 7:30, or
have the TV on during the Texans football game. Come over here and have a hot dog and look at the open house and watch the
I've done that.
Have a theme for each open house.
Posting the open house on MLS, I've said, in case you're concerned, of course, the game will be on.
Yeah. Rethink, because we want to talk about the $500 strategy. In October, we're going to take up this notion. I'm just kind of planting some little seeds of things that we're going to be talking about. What would you do? Where would you advertise? What would you do with this $500 if you were given $500?
Before you list. Decide before you list.
Yeah, before you list. We're then taking this aging summary and say, all right, we are in a battle. Okay, we got a battle strategy. We have to rethink this a little bit. And we need a strategy for week 1, and we need a strategy for week 2 through 4, and then we need a totally different strategy after 30 days. We can't keep doing the same thing. And so we're going to target a plan for your listing, a 1-week strategy, week 2 through 4, week 5 through 8, and we're going to continue to evolve with some things that we're going to do different based on how long it's been on the market. And there needs to be a strategy to go and deal with these listings as they get to the 30th day, because we can't just wait for something else to happen. And sometimes we're having to wait. If there is no sale, there is no sale, but there are still some other things that could be done, and we want to think about it as a strategy that way. If we were in a battle or we were the head coach of a football team, we have a different strategy every week based on what the competition is that week. We need to think of housing is about the same way. So what are we going to do in week 5 that we didn't do in week 1? And how aggressive are we going to be in week 1? And then give it a little time in week 2, 3, and 4 to get the feedback. And then what's the next? We have to do something. I think there has to be a more action plan geared towards that. So we're going to be explaining that to you. Okay,
So why, could we make that part of the presentation packet as well?
sure we can.
And that way,
Sure we can.
you're forcing the listing agent to participate and to be able to talk about it and say, while you're getting them to sign the listing agreement, you say, what do you think about these options down the road as we start to show your?
Or just explain it to them. I think you're the professional, so I think you're going to go, instead of getting them to check off their menu what they want, I think you're going to go say, here's the first course,
Yeah.
here's the second course, here's the third course. And this is what we're going to do. And why we don't want to necessarily do all those things on day 1. I mean, there's a strategy when I'm putting out, Neiman Marcus has a strategy for March that's different from August. And so the same thing, we need to think about it kind of the same way there. Did I explain that thoroughly?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. What else did I have to go over? Feedback survey, redesign, the $500 philosophy, the fall outlook.
I have a question
Okay.
about the, people in the pictures.
Yes.
Because I love it,
Okay.
but we always tell our sellers, depersonalize.
I think we're going to get off that.
I don't do that.
I think that it's become too unpersonalized.
That's what
I think that people want to buy a house, and I think, yeah, they might want to see their own stuff. So I'm not saying you can't take a photo. You can have both. I mean, I think you can show 2 living rooms, one with nothing and one with interaction, or show the interactive photos first and then show the clear ones also. So I'm taking 2626 Beauchamp. I put it on the market. My clients don't really have to sell until March of 2017. They're willing to sell anytime. We put it on for a little bit in the spring, did not have great luck with it. There weren't a lot of houses selling in that price range. We pulled it off. We're going back again. It is a 5,000 square foot lot with a front loading garage. This is just an example of what I'm doing. They have what I consider to be a very large side yard of about 15 feet in the back. The yard is about like this, okay? But people don't see the yard. The door is off the side. So when you go off the side, yeah, I think this is perfect. Let's pull up this photo. So we're taking their backyard. We took their photos and their survey, and we're remeasuring the backyard and say, there's 800 square feet of backyard space here. Now they've got it, they bought the house because it was low maintenance. They have never had children, but it is a perfect house for children. It is walking distance to Travis Elementary. Very nice house over here. But they've got it full. They patioed everything and they landscaped the hell out of it or whatever. And so, but to counteract that we don't have a great yard, we're doing a couple of things. We are having Frank go in and colorize all grass. Just take the deal and take out their stuff and put in all grass. We have an overview photo. These photos were not showing the backyard very well. Brandon might have to pull up the actual photos versus the MLS. So we did a version of just grass everywhere. Then we did a version, then we plopped in a swimming pool in there and showed them how much grass was left over there. Then we had them go and put their fire equipment and their deals and string their little lights and go put 20 people having wine and enjoying the deal and showing how the backyard can accommodate all these sort of people, showing the lifestyle. So we're going to show the reality of the yard and 3 other virtual realities that can be yours. Do you want grass? Do you want pool? Or do you want low maintenance? It gives you all 3 options, at 2626 Beauchamp. But we're gonna have to go to the effort of showing how you can do that. And so that's just, so we're gonna show on the MLS, option 1, 2, or 3. Choose your lifestyle of what you want over here with Beauchamp. And then explain how large the backyard is.
But how much does it cost you to do that?
It cost me Frank over there and Thomas and Francis over there doing it for us.
Wow.
It didn't cost me anything.
Well, you had to you bought the grass and you.
No, we photoshopped it in there. We're photoshopping it in there.
kidding me?
No, we're
We're
photoshopping it and showing people a prototype pool, prototype grass. Now, we took the photo of the party because, we sat down and I'm getting that your yard is too small. And it's because it's all brick, and they did trim back the trees, and they had moved out. They had to do a little bit of stuff, but I mean, in reality, can you get to our photo? Or no, we can't really get. Can you Google it?
Yeah, we can
Can you
do it.
Google from the top or whatever and show them? But yeah, so I had Francis or Thomas over there taking out, photoshopping and adding back the grass. Adding, plopping in a swimming pool, and then showing the interactive party. And then what we agreed, we're going to have the realtor open house before we're going to send this out and have the realtors come to a wine and cheese thing at night with interaction with their neighbors, promoting the neighborhood, the proximity to Travis, and the usable backyard. Now it's 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath house or whatever. That's very nice. Can you get there? But I mean, this is just an idea of thinking outside the box a little bit, okay? It's kind of like the virtual staging. I'm kind of liking the virtual staging because you can show 14 different things, not just one. So it doesn't have to just be, you can plop in exercise equipment, you can plop in the Zen room, you can plop in the prayer room, you can plop in anything over here. So this is just an idea of what we're doing. So trying to get to the top-down version of this interactive little opportunity.
So what this reminds me of is those shows that you'll see that they're the brothers shows, the one.
Property Brothers.
Yeah, so they will show, you can have this thing or this thing or this
That's right.
thing.
That's almost what we're doing here.
Oh, that's as close as we can get.
Well, that's all right. It was just an idea.
Yeah.
But this is something we're doing. This is option 1, 2, or 3. Grass, low maintenance swimming pool. What do you want? You can have it all. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But we're going to come up with some of these ideas from the listing side. How to differentiate ourselves from Martha Turner, John Daughter, and Greenwood King. What are we doing different? Yes, Brendan?
I guess that leads me to think, I see these websites all the time about virtual staging, for the interiors of rooms too. I mean, personally, I like real staging. I mean, I guess it's always best, but what are your thoughts on
I'm all-
virtual staging?
I'm liking the virtual
Where they
staging.
take
What
the
I'm liking
measurements of the room and see what they can fit where and.
That's right. I'm like, especially if there's a difficult situation. And on the staging, I'm not a huge fan of staging myself, but I will tell you in real estate it works. So my opinion doesn't really matter because I have seen the houses. We had it on our one in Brayburn. We did not stage it. I thought it was better clean, and I lost that to Lisa Kornhauser, and they staged it, and the damn thing sold immediately.
I got 706 Albright. It was the same kind of thing. It was just languishing out there. Sandra staged it, and couples came through and were fighting each other to make offers. And Dad said 4 of them came through the open house and cried because it was already under contract
Yeah, and been on the market for quite a while.
with another agent before.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think the virtual staging, what I like about the virtual staging though, is what I'm saying. You can do it show them 3 options of what can go on, so definitely if there's a flaw. So a house that doesn't, a townhouse and it's, the second floor is the kitchen, dining, living, and really there's not a dining room. There's just, and so you walk through it time and time and time again, and people can't see 4 friends sitting at dinner. Sometimes you're forced to go plop in the dining room to show them that the dining room fits. So that definitely works. The virtual staging can do the same thing. You can show a round table for 6, you can show a square table for 8, you can show a long table for 12. And if you show them all 3 of those options, then I think you do better than just doing virtual staging and only showing them 1, because for quickly you can turn right around and do more.
And I hope this concept catches on because it will help you with your buyers too. Because if you have a buyer that has no vision, and then they can see the house with stuff in it, it will help you sell it too.
What I'm hoping is that we make it a little more personal. Literally in the virtual setting, plop in the damn dogs on the couch. You know, do it a little darker and turn a lamp on. I mean, I think you're gonna have to think not just so sterile. I think people are a little afraid of it being too sterile. I have this, I mean, when Devin was staged, the overwhelming response is, my house is never gonna look this nice. I don't have this nice of furniture, you know, and so it's these, you know, sort of, you know, this ain't my style. Versus if there was a blank canvas over there, they could have seen their style a little bit more. But overall, I do think that it works. And there again, strategy one might be, we're gonna try this with no furniture. Week two, we're gonna do the virtual renderings. Week four, we're gonna add the furniture. There's nothing wrong with that strategy of saying, on Beauchamp, I mean, we're going to go this route for 2 months. We're going, and then I would have tried twice. They don't have to sell until next spring. But after that, I mean, we are going to go and do what I told them the first time. It's green trim and it's a green island, and we're going to go make that all white, and we're going to go put in white subway tile, and it can be on a herringbone pattern with black grout, but we're going to go do something. We have a strategy to sell that house by next May. And so we're going to try this route first. In the fall, I think the yard is going to be my selling point. But if it just can't work, my second strategy, and they were perfectly fine with that strategy. They were perfectly fine. So I do want to remind you this afternoon at the fire station from 1 to 3 about buying history. This is the planning department and the historic preservation department talking and interacting with the realtor community and any potential buyers that wanted to go about very specific things of how to deal both with the preservation ordinance as it's been modified since last fall, what are the differences, and how the design guidelines and input on design guidelines will impact historic districts or whatever. We have had about 80 different realtors RSVP from around the city. Very few of our own realtors probably RSVP. Do you know how many of ours did?
No, it was a good number. It was about 20 something,
Okay.
almost 30.
We specifically reached out to Heritage, and Shally's going to be there, and Beth Wolf, and Amy Bernstein, and Marilyn Thompson, and Jennifer. I went and made presentations at Coldwell Banker. We asked for it to be driven by the other firm, so it didn't look like a Boulevard Realty initiative over there. But I mean, I think this is your opportunity to ask questions. I mean, I will get them started, and I have met with Margaret, the preservation officer, and Patrick, the planning director, many times. I think they've done us a disservice by being too vague. And I think they have this hesitancy because they're employees who indirectly, there's the appointed commission that can do whatever. And so they're hesitant to say, you can't do that because the commission could do that. And certainly there are plenty of instances where the historic commission has not taken the recommendation, and that gets a little frustrating. But I mean, I think it's designed to be very specific with what the ordinance says this time. And I think the problem with the revisions is that it doesn't matter what we did the previous 6 years. You can't do that camelback anymore. You can't change those windows anymore. You can't do those things anymore. And so it's confusing because people like, they look down the 1600 block of Columbia and they think, oh my God, I can do so many different things. Well, that ordinance is gone. That one's gone, and you have a new one. And it doesn't matter what they passed last October or November. There's a new set of criteria that comes into play. And so that's what I think we're seeing. So I encourage you to go and ask questions if you want specific questions. I mean, I don't think there's anyone more knowledgeable than me, but I'm happy to.
Do you have a copy of that with your red line with the changes from the previous one?
Yes.
We have a red line version of the changes. It's just they talk in gobbledygook, and it's hard for the person to understand what it means. So the largest area would be context area, okay? So when they add the word context area, if you're in the 400 block of Harvard, you literally can only use the 400 block of Harvard. And you must wait to the east side of the 400 block of Harvard if you're in the 400 block of Harvard. So if there's a vacant lot or a bungalow in the 400 block of Harvard, it doesn't matter what they do in the 900 block of Harvard. That's not the same context area. You cannot use Heights Boulevard to refer to anything other than Heights Boulevard. And of course, you barely can use Heights South versus Heights East or Heights West or whatever. So the content, when you insert the word context area, which no one understands, it modified how the whole thing works over there. So you must look, if I'm in the 1500 block of Oxford, next door to Becky's house, which is a brand new brick thing, whatever. And if you have a lot that's 200 feet wide, you have 4 lots, you can still only build a 35-foot wide house, because in the 1500 block of Harvard, that's the widest that any house that was in 1920 that was there. If in the 1500 block on the west side, the height of the highest historic house is 28 feet, that's as high as you can build. You can't adversely diminish the value of the historic house. So if you build a 35-foot tall house next to the 28-foot wide house, in their mind, it diminishes the value of the historical house. That's all they care about. So they've modified the whole thing, so you have to look at it in that context. And it's hard for people to say, but around the corner, though the people wanted brick at the bottom of the house. There's one on 15 in between Columbia and Cortland, but you can't use that as a reference. There were no houses in the 1500 block of Oxford that had a brick skirting or brick on the piers. So they would not approve that. So, I mean, that's an example of it's hard. So I tell you, oh yeah, they insert the word context area. You don't really know what that means. But that is probably the single largest change. But it is intentionally designed for scale. That's this way, and how it fits into the context of that particular block. I mean, that's what's changed. And you will not be able to diminish any historical component. That means a door and a window or the siding. And so you can't kick back in at 50% because you have to be able to clearly define what was original. Okay? You have to be able to clearly define it. Now, if you're at 117 siding, you can switch to brick, or you can switch something, or you can put a little piece of trim. You can kick it out a foot or kick it in a foot, but you must be able to pick up the original from the addition. So there's no more of that camelback where you start at 70% or anything. Their purpose is to be able to identify the old house.
Well, you have a perfect example of that house on Euclid, because the front of the house is wood shingles, the back of the house, the remodel is particle plank shingles.
Yes, they like that. There are ways to modify around it, and we argue with them about, but yeah, you cannot have a 2-1 bungalow and do an extension of a modest 1,000 square foot addition, and it looks seamless. You can't do that. They don't want that. You must understand the premise of the ordinance is for you to be able to differentiate the old from the new. So you can kick out the addition a foot, you can kick it in a foot, you can put a piece of trim, you can change the size. I mean, there's a couple. You can make it 1 foot lower, you can make it 1 foot higher, but you have to be able to differentiate. It's not a seamless deal. You've got to be able to see the old. So.
And they don't want you to impact the historic material in.
That's right. And historic material is old rotten wood. I mean, that's historic material. So yes. You've got to be careful how that works. Now, if you have 117 siding, can you continue with 117 siding? Well, sure you can, but you must delineate the difference between the old and the new. If you have, there are some positive things. You can get administrative approval. I've done it many times in the last month. We pulled off the vinyl siding at Kaiser, and instead of going to the HHC and having a drawing and waiting 30 days, if you're just replacing it with a like material, you get a permit that day. If you're changing your front door in your Paul Gomberg Premier Victorian house that was built in '91, you want to change the door, you get administrative approval immediately. But historic material is an old window, and you're not going to be able to replace an old window, and you're not going to replace an old door. We have classic examples in Norhill, women living in bungalows, and there's a glass door, and they don't feel safe, and they want to change their glass door to a Craftsman door. Just a Craftsman door with the answer is no. Just be clear. The answer is no. You're not going to be able to take that historic door that's all glass and that English cottage and change that door. That door is historical.
But
Sandblast?
they,
You can change the color of it.
they
You
said.
cannot sandblast your brick anymore. If you had mason, you have painted brick that was painted originally, you cannot modify that paint.
What happens if they destroy what they?
I don't have any idea. You have any?
I'm
What
trying,
happens if they
I'm trying.
destroy the things that they take out and aren't able to put it back in? Then it's okay.
You know, they got a variance on, the one behind you or whatever. It was very contentious. You could make, they wanted to make them wait 2 years. That's the penalty. They could put their project on hold for 2 years. And so that's really the recourse in that deal. When they picked up the house, the windows did move such, and there was no real way to make that work. And since they'd already gotten permission to pick up the house, which was a difficult ordeal anyway, then it caused that damage.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's important if we want to modify some of these things. So like for the design guidelines, yes, we could say the context area for Heights South is from 11th Street to I-10 from Heights to Oxford. That is the context area because it doesn't have to just be the block. But the default is the block unless the design guidelines define otherwise. So that's why I want more input into the design guidelines, where I want the homeowners to know. But I will tell you, no one fought this more than Kathleen and I. And I cannot find an overwhelming number of people who want to undo it. They only want to undo it when they're doing something. Once they've done it, then they say, I've got mine, it doesn't matter. And the fear of having a modern big 2-story mega mansion next door to them, they're willing to put up with this. Overall, you can't. Now, whether they can get any new historic districts, I don't know. You would think that they could, but I mean, I don't know. But to undo it, you would have to be able to get 67% of the people who would want to opt out of a historic district. And I'm just telling you, you can't get there.
So our houses that have been modified a lot,
They're all
are
grandfathered.
considered historic?
It depends on the level of, it depends on where they were in the initial classification 7 years ago. So like Ann Collada's house had been modified so much at 1303 Portland, it became a non-contributing structure. So there are examples of bungalows or homes that have been modified such that they're no longer contributing. But if
But
they're
mostly
contributing,
not.
that's right, mostly
They
not.
got lumped into all contributing and very few non-contributing.
Yes, right.
If
So
they're
are
old.
they gonna redo the list of which ones are contributing and
No.
non-contributing now?
Yeah,
No,
they
they're-
have.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
they can't
They
convert it, but they're all,
redid it.
the list is still
based
there.
on the new.
No.
guidelines?
They took the old list and just basically if you were contributing or potentially contributing before, you are contributing.
Right.
They did not redo the list. They updated the list and took away potentially and it became contributing.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, you're a little sensitive about being able to finance old pieces of crap.
Uh-huh.
How do you finance some of these things?
Well, they're not allowed to consider that. The historic preservation ordinance is not allowed to consider that anyway. I mean, you can finance anything. I mean, just kind of depends, but I mean, it's harder if they're falling down.
But are the appraisers going to, like they did on sort of 23rd Street and say there's this house should no longer exist? So.
Certainly, there can be conflict between a mortgage appraisal and what is the inherent value of, what our classic argument is, there is now zero land value when there's a house on it. You can't even, so it doesn't mean HPAD doesn't agree with me or doesn't agree that the mortgage guy doesn't agree with you, but it's not like you can pick up that and do whatever you want to with it.
And the difference on yours is it's
No,
not.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm just
So-
projecting if we had been.
I think what you're gonna see
historic-
is the sizes of the houses are gonna stay predominantly what they are. And you're gonna get modest additions or you're gonna get remodeling of interiors. And how the market deals with that, I don't know. You would assume that it would reduce the value of some of the houses in historic districts.
It can be
that
single
need
people and
remodeling.
rentals. Single people and rentals.
But they still think in 30 years it won't matter and the house should still be there and that's better than tearing them all down and putting up a stucco mansion. I'm not gonna take up the political argument. I just want I want the real estate community to understand the reality of where we are.
And why this has come up is because time after time at the HAC, people buy a house, their realtor tells them, oh yeah, you can go get this modified. And then they get turned down and they're upset and they're set approved out, you got the city.
Like looking at the comps again, we said, forget what they did last year. Forget those Camelbacks, forget what Whitestone did or Southland or any of it doesn't matter. It doesn't, I mean, that has nothing to do with it anymore. You can only look forward. And going forward, this is all you can do. So I think that is the real estate and buyer component. They drive around the neighborhood, whether that's Woodland Heights or Houston Heights or wherever it is, and they say, I can do this. And they can't do it any longer. And I don't think anybody did a very good job of telling people. I think Boulevard Realty knew better than most people. But I don't think we did a very good job in the real estate community educating the realtors, that's the buyers or whatever.
That somehow, I mean, it just seems like it should be illegal because the houses that haven't been redone and need the most attention are now significantly worth less.
Yes.
The people opted in, they got to 67%. So I mean, that's the way the legal department.
No, they didn't opt in, they didn't.
There was a community vote.
We're co-opt. No, make no mistake, but after the ordinance changed.
It's no different from deed restrictions.
It's.
Or minimum lot size. You don't have to sign up for minimum lot size, but if they get to 50%, the planning department approves it, then you have minimum lot size. And yeah, now you can't sell your lot to the townhouse developer who can put 12, your land is worth more. We just did the 20 block of Harvard. Yeah, is that land more valuable if you can tear it down and put 6 townhouses? Well, sure, now you can only have a single family house there. The land is worth less, but it happens all the time in the city.
is worth more.
Do what?
The neighborhood is worth
The neighborhood is worth more, and in the long run, it's fine. So it's done, it's not illegal.
I don't know
It's
about
the
that.
same deal that happens all the time, with minimum lot size and minimum real line.
So
It
no-
stops development.
So today you can't change any window because it's in a historic district.
Right.
The answer is, yeah, you can't change the historical element if it's totally broken and fallen out and not,
I've seen them
but almost every window can be repaired.
force people to
Right.
remake an
They-
historic window.
Right.
Remake it from scratch.
That's what they want you to do.
And they still
Which is
consider
insane.
that historic.
Same, right.
Where we're fighting with them is if you're in that
Yeah.
historic house and you've got the
Salvage
old
house.
windows and they're 1/1 and you want to do your modest addition of 500 square feet or whatever, you're just pushing back a little bit. They want that window pattern to be different from what's on the original house. And I'll give them, we can move it over a foot or back a foot or up a foot or something, but don't make me put a whole different window in the addition from the other house. If it's 1/1, I want 1/1. If it's 4/1, I want 4/1. And they're yielding a little bit there. They're yielding a little bit. It's been done.
They don't really care about design.
That's right. They could care less if
They
there's
do not
a window in the
care
kitchen or
about
not. They don't care.
How many of these people that make these decisions and push them on everyone who's actually living in the Heights?
Very few.
Very few.
They're historians. They're just historians. And they understand historical context. They do
They-
understand that.
They're purists.
That's right.
They're ideologues.
And they say it's less than 1% of the population, and so it's for the greater good. And I look at Woodland Heights and I look at, it doesn't diminish the value of your average home and when all the homes are the same. In Freeland, it works just fine. In Norhill, it works fine. In Broadacres, it works fine. In Audubon, it works fine. I mean, it works fine in the majority of places. It is more complicated in the Heights, east, west, and south. It was really too far gone, which was pushing through an initiative that probably would never have gone through if the mayor just really, that particular mayor had really wanted it. But it is hard to figure out the 1,500 block of Oxford, what should go there, when the majority of the houses are brand new anyway. And so now we're trying to compare 3 houses out of 15 lots.
What do? They come out, all those people, and walk the block.
Yes, they
and
do.
have 15 different opinions?
No,
Oh, no.
the staff makes a recommendation, they take the photos, they look at that block and they're able to, I mean, the design is to keep the scale down, to have modest homes and modest additions, but you don't take away from the next door neighbor or the neighborhood.
So they're
But this
looking
just
at it
started,
from.
Yeah, it really started in December.
Okay. I know the lot behind me has filled up the whole entire.
Yeah, I don't think they would be able to do that today. They were grandfathered under the old ordinance and they were in the time frame. They were adopted under the different criteria. And specifically for that deal, it was the old criteria. Then if you made application after that month, then you have a whole new criteria.
It really does lower the value, I think, because it takes, I mean, that particular one takes up the whole entire space. And I mean, it really changes the look. It's like almost having a townhome behind you.
So you can still all that add-on to the back, it has to be the back.
That's correct.
And if it's on the corner,
You can add on
It's
to the
more
left.
challenging.
It's a little more challenge, but you can do it. I mean, I don't want to tell you you can't add on, it's just they're more modest than they used to be, and where you do it and how you do it. We're gonna do a better job, so
Right.
the staff's gonna be there, like I say, there, I can be more forceful, and I have been to more historic commission meetings than anyone else in 2016. I'm the only realtor that goes other than Kathleen, so I mean, I've gone to watch them in action, of course, then I meet with, so there's the commission and then there's the staff, so you're having to deal with both groups. And yes, the commission can change a little, and I think it's very rigid, and I think it could get less rigid with the mayor's appointees. I think it could make a little difference. That will happen soon. The staff could get a little direction, but I mean, until, I don't see any significant changes in the near future.
And the staff is oftentimes more lenient than.
Then the commission can be
yeah,
extreme.
I've seen that. So can the mayor can't undo this?
Sure they can, but I don't know that it's a battle and you willing to fight right this second. So we can ask me again next year.
Could he undo it for just the heights or just?
Could,
Yeah,
he could,
He
he
can
could,
do any,
he could,
sure.
because of litigation, he could. But I don't know
There's
that,
nothing to force his hand except the litigation.
Is there pending litigation?
there is,
I,
for Heights and East West and so on. So, please come today, please encourage, do I?
What can we do to put back?
I'm working on that.
I would encourage anyone to, if you have homeowners that are in a historic district that were thinking about any renovation on the exterior, change, you can still paint anything you want, you can add a ceiling fan, you can add a mailbox, all that sort of stuff. None of that counts.
So like 628 Bayland, where they have put that awful addition, taking the porch with that bay window that then kind of goes around the side of the house. It's disgusting.
Which one is it again?
628 Bayland, the blue one,
435.
628 Bayland, 628 Bayland.
Got a big bay window on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about.
Where is it?
It's on the market.
Yeah.
Aaron, pull it up.
Like
Sure.
435,000.
Yeah. So,
Bob Gadaris' old thing that was always there, the little cottage thing.
I think
little
so.
cottage, run down.
All right, so yeah, I'm familiar, it has the bay, I remember
And
that.
I'm not, yeah.
But the bay is not original, so you can tear the bay
Right,
off.
you take that
Uh-huh.
down. I mean, so under what circumstances, like if you start renovating the house, at what point are you forced to take that down?
The house,
No,
The
you're not forced, they can't make you,
window.
they can't make you take off something that's there, really. So you could leave it there. If you took it all off, you couldn't replace it though. If it does burn, you could replace it. I mean, you can put something back the way it was. But yeah, I mean, you can certainly take that off. That was probably some porch.
Yeah,
That door's not original. You can fix
Yeah, that
that. But you're not gonna modify that line. Those are original with that slate. So I mean, you can tear this off. I can tell that's not original, and you can tear that
Yeah,
back
that's
down.
not original, that door used to be,
Back in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that, you can take all that and make back the porch, but if you can't take it out and put it back,
And if there's not, is there some level of renovation that you get to where they would make you take that off?
No.
Okay.
can't make you take it off. But yeah, I think if you have a question, Kathleen and I have a pretty good feel for what's acceptable.
I've been going.
And this is, let's say you had this flare and you were adding on and you wanted to keep the same siding. This is, we've finally convinced them, a delineation. So you could have your addition, just as long as we have this trim piece, now we see the old from the new. You don't have this, of course, and they have rules. I mean, they used to make you change the whole siding altogether. And can you use hardy plank? Well, sure, you can use hardy plank. And you could do an addition to this house and you can make it stucco. They like for it to be a product of its own time. I mean, they want it to look different from the historical perspective.
So
I mean, you've got to think of it this way. There's that church that's at the corner of Studewood and 14th. And you can see they just filled in the brick. And you can just clearly see it almost doesn't even match. Historic people love that. They love to be able to see whatever you did in 2016 was not original to 1900. I mean, that's in their mind. They don't want the Sistine Chapel to remodel and look exactly brand spanking new. They want it to look old and
So do you foresee
have a modern bathroom adjacent to it.
expanding this to the interior?
No.
No,
Here's where they get us on the interior. There are, where they get us is over, the headers over this window. If you do something to the interior that hurts that, what would be original, not necessarily this one, then yes, there is interior components of the ordinance. If you modify the header and it hurts that window that's original, you can't do that. That's
So
really.
considering shiplap as
yes,
part of it?
yes.
They've yielded on the shiplap for the interior walls and those sort of things. They can only regulate the part that impacts the exterior.
Right.
So if the shiplap on the stucco house behind Ann is removed and it hurts the exterior historic stucco, now they got permission to redo the stucco on that house. That's where they would get you. But it's really only the interior element that impacts the exterior element.
Well, they
People out all
can say
floor.
that shiplap on the exterior walls is structural, so you can't modify it.
Well, they've yielded a little on that since we've argued with them, but only as it impacts the historic elements.
On the exterior walls.
Yes, only if it impacts. So if you removing the shiplap hurts the exterior wood siding, yes, you wouldn't be able to do that. But if you can prove that you can remove the shiplap and not adversely impact the exterior, they cannot deny you. But the windows are where they got us the most, because it did hurt the windows when we removed the header. But it's because they were trying to find a way to tell you, this is an old ordinance, that you couldn't replace the windows. They didn't want you to replace the windows, but we kept finding ways around it. Now with the revision, windows have been labeled historic. You cannot remove historic material. So you cannot replace the windows.
Unless they're not original.
Unless they're not original. You can replace non-original material, which is fine. Okay, this is probably longer than you want to talk about that. Any other questions or anything? 1 o'clock at fire station. See you soon. Fill out your survey, please, please, please. How are we looking at Morrison over there?
Mine just got put in this morning.
I texted my friend and said, "You're famous. You're on the screen in our meeting." And she's like, "Oh my god, that's awesome." I had somebody call about it.
Oh, yeah?
To view it this weekend.